Welcome back to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Oh, look at this. I went on a little trip. We didn't even miss one. And I'm back. This trip was a vacation. It wasn't a work trip, in case you're wondering. Had a lovely, lovely little trip. Me and my son had a little father-son trip. Had a good old time. Spent some time together doing vacation-y things. And then also just hanging out. Like, you know, after a certain point, he was like, I'm tuckered out. Spent the afternoon in the hotel watching anime together, like you do. So it was nice. It was refreshing, and I'm very happy, of course, to be back here with you guys to talk about FPV. You know, answer your questions. Blunty is queuing up your questions here, but obviously, Blunty, what we need to start the stream with. What are we going to start the stream with, Blunty? What are we going to talk about first, Blunty?
I don't know. What are we going to talk about?
You can't guess? That it's gonna be my app that I'm still working on. Oh yeah, my latency testing app. Oh my God! Wait till you see what I did now. Okay, I promise we won't take too long. I've got it, Blunty. I say I. I've got it detecting first pixel and full frame transitions now. See, the problem with latency testing is you got to detect the first pixel change and the full frame, not just like anywhere in the rising edge, right? Because when you're doing latency testing, that matters. And so what we got here is, let's see if it's doing this. Here should be first pixel. Yup. Look, see? Right here. That's the first pixel. See the screen lights up? And then 1, 2. Now it's full frame. Boom! This was a lot harder than you think it might be. I don't know. Maybe you think it's hard. Let's check another one. Let's see. Hold on a second. Go back. Transition. Transition. Okay. And the hell? No, that's not. Oh, that's a down. That's a. I see. Yeah. That's a downward edge. Hold on. I'll do a rising one. That's easier to see. Where? There we go. First pixel. Full frame. Oh, well, technically that's not quite full frame, is it? I guess. No, it is full frame, because that's the first pixel there. I guess that gets slightly brighter there. Yeah, anyway, it's hard to get right, but I feel pretty good about this. Oh, we're going to have to do a little more work on the dimming. It's slower to dim. Okay, still more work to do, but I'm very pleased because like I really wanted those numbers, and now I've got the app to kind of almost do it. Anyway, more testing is required. If you guys are doing any kind of like latency testing, like Nilsvo or Madstech do, GitHub, you can. This is up on GitHub if you want to play with it. You know, it's still very much a work in progress, but github.com/JoshuaBardwell/FPV-latency-tool. It's a tool to import this video of the latency testing. That's clearly not right. And then automatically calculate the timing and detect the transitions. I mean, frankly, I might even just let you manually manipulate the like. What if you could just click drag and say put it here, put it there? That would still be faster than doing it in a video editor, because it can find the transitions automatically, and then you could tweak them anyway, and then you could calculate latency. I'm psyched. I've had a lot of fun playing with it, and I always like showing off things I'm doing on the stream. You know, I took your advice, Blunty, and I switched from Sonnet to Opus. I got to tell you, I went back to Sonnet. I found Opus 5, I felt like I got in more situations where it was like we were just talking about the problem and not really solving the problem. And then sometimes it would say something and I'd be like, but wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. And it would be like, oh, you know, you're right. No, that's not right. And I don't know, maybe Sonnet is making those same mistakes and just not catching it. But I feel like, but I burned through my 5 hours of tokens immediately with Opus. Whereas with Sonnet, I have yet to burn through. I've yet to hit a token limit. I feel like I'm getting better results with Sonnet than Opus. So, I don't know. Yarrow says Sonnet is way too slow for programming. I don't know. What I'm doing, it seems to work pretty well. But, meh. Anyway, I'm still having fun with it. If anybody out there is doing any kind of latency testing of FPV systems, you know, where you shine a light, you take a picture of the screen, that thing, if you're doing that, please reach out to me so that, in fact, Blunty, let's put this on the Livestream Clips channel as like, you know, Bardwell looking for beta testers for his latency testing app or something. I would love to signal boost this. It's definitely at a point where I would love to get more people touching it than just me. Because like I need more data and I just don't have if all you do is send me your sample footage for me to run against, but then if you wanted to actually try to use the app and say, hey, look, here's a problem I found or here's a way it could be better, that would be great. I realize there's an extremely small number of people in the world who actually would use this app, but statistically speaking, they're likely to be watching this stream. So, okay. let's get on with the stream. Marco, that's a very cool idea. As Blunty said, only like 10 people would use it. Why don't we make a board with LEDs for each millisecond? You just take a pic and subtract the screen from real life. I mean, keep in mind that the cameras you were using. So I'm using a 240 FPS GoPro. Actually, here is that very camera. 240 frames per second gives you 4 milliseconds per frame. So, like you would need, if you had a 10 millisecond, that would be about right. 4 milliseconds per frame. You have an average error of plus or minus 4 milliseconds. I think it's about 8 millisecond window. So you could get down to about 10 milliseconds precision. But keep in mind that if the LEDs were let's say you had each LED lights 1 millisecond, well, it would just go brrrr, and you would need like 1,000 FPS camera to catch the LED that was lit in that millisecond. Also, an LED might take more than 1 millisecond to light up. Like in my testing with 240 frames per second, I can see the LED doot doot. It takes 2 frames to get fully lit. Unreality FPV, I'd love if you submitted some footage. Email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, or message me on Discord. I would love to get more footage. Because like the footage that I have, the signal has certain characteristics, and that's what we're looking at, the signal, the brightness. We're not actually looking at the screen, which may be a mistake. Rather than looking at the average brightness. Maybe I should be looking at the number of pixels that are white versus the number of pixels that are black or something. But the problem is that the camera moves slightly. So like you would have to then motion track the screen, which is itself complicated. So I don't know, but it's been a fun project to play with. Anyway, let's get on with the live stream. Any opinions or upcoming reviews about the Caddx Curve? So I do not have the Caddx Curve. They didn't send it to me. And so that is the number one way to get me to review your product, is to send it to me. Although sometimes people send me products and I don't want to review it, and so I just don't, which probably annoys them. But if you don't send me a product, I might be so interested in your product that I buy it out of pocket and review it. But that's like a hurdle. And if you want me to review your product, the best thing for you to do is send it to me. And don't even ask me if I want it. Just be like, hey, I'm sending this to you. Please make a video about it if you feel like it. And then I might, or I might not. I mean, realistically, I probably will. Because, like, unless, I don't know. I would make a video about this, but I don't have it. The Caddx Curve is a 1.6 inch whoop. Oh no. Oh, Caddx did it. Oh, Caddx gonna get sued. That is, registered trademark. You think I could write a Chrome plugin that whenever these words appear, it replaces it with another word? I bet I could. It has the, people have no idea what I'm talking about. It has the Ascent system. It's basically a whoop with the Ascent light in it, right? That's what it is. It's got the Ascent Light Plus. Yeah. So it's basically a 1.6 inch whoop with the Ascent Light Plus in it. Great. I mean, if you're going to have a video system like this, then you want to have a pre-build people can buy. And for these little light video transmitters, a whoop is the way to do it. Here's the thing. Here's your little mini review. We know about the quality of the Ascent Light Plus VTX. That's been reviewed separately. So now we just take that video system and we slap it in a drone. And unlike, there's a lot less variability with these digital VTXs. They kind of just work the way they work. They're pretty consistent. It's not like an analog VTX Well, the thing with analog VTX is if you were to buy a TBS Unify, you know what you're getting. But there's so many different analog VTXs, and then especially as you get into the micros with the integrated VTXs, every single analog VTX that I reviewed, it felt like they would have a different antenna. There were so many variables, you would kind of take each one on its own. And every time I did a review of an analog drone, I would be like, how's the video performance? Yes, it says it's at 1 watt, but how much actual power do you get? How much actual range do you get? When I review a drone with one of these digital systems, like, I think you can assume that every O4 in existence is within a relatively tight margin of every other O4 in terms of performance. And that's probably, I don't know if that's probably less true for like a Cadix, but it's still probably relatively true. You know, they're relatively sophisticated video transmitters with relatively consistent performance. At least that's my feeling. So then you say, okay, well, I know how the video range is. What about the control range? It's Express LRS. So it's good. Like, for those of us who grew up in a world where the FreeSky video transmitter or the FreeSky receiver was the standard, the worst Express LRS receiver in the world beats it. Maybe they have a shitty antenna because it's a micro and it gets reduced range, but Express LRS has such insane range to begin with that you're probably fine. And then you just look at the weight and you look at the motors and you say, is this going to fly? Is this like overweight? Is it going to fly like a dog? And that's the big variable here is how does it fly? But unless they like really screwed it up, it probably flies okay. And then you have the question of durability. Like, if it crashes, is it going to break really badly? And again, that's kind of like an unknown. So it's not like this is a known quantity. But when you say, do you want to review this? Well, two of the big questions you ask when you buy a drone, how's the video system work and how's the control link work? Those two questions kind of you can know the answer without ever actually flying this drone. Now, for a price of $129, here's the thing. If you have the Ascent video system, hey, look, it's a bind and fly with that video transmitter in it. Probably worth spending $100, The frick is this? What is this thing? The A-Link controller. Cadix FPV A-Link controller. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. That's cute. I'm skeptical, but it's cute. Oh, did it come with the Protos? I think I did. That's where I've seen this before. It came with the Protos. I have the Protos. Anyway. Cadix is, in general, I've been pretty impressed with Cadix bind and flies. In general. Okay. Hey, here's a super chat for 30 Polish zloty from Nie Photograph. Hi from Poland. Hello, Poland. Any compelling reason to change from TBS Tango 2 and a lot of Crossfire to ELRS? Here's the thing. Crossfire is a great control link. If you already have a bunch of Crossfire, and then it's not like you were saying any compelling reason to switch from Spectrum to Express LRS. And I'd be like, oh God, so many reasons. Right? Express LRS has so much better range. It's so much cheaper. Crossfire is solid. And if you have a bunch of Crossfire, it's going to be a fair expense and a fair hassle to swap things. Now, the good news is the wiring is the same. So you won't have to redo anything in your flight controller. Any drone that has a Crossfire receiver, it's just a hardware swap and bind and all that stuff. But you know your drones will be the same. You just drop the new receiver in, you can bind it, and you should be good to go. But the thing, it's going to be, depending on how many drones you have, it's going to be a fair whack of money, maybe $20 per receiver, roughly. And then you're going to have to go through and swap them all out, and that's going to kind of be a pain in the ass. So, like, the question is, like, do you want to, right? There isn't really a killer, in terms of performance, Express LRS and Crossfire are fairly similar. And there isn't, like, a killer feature that Express LRS is going to give you. There are a few things that Express LRS can do that if you're already in the Express LRS ecosystem, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. I like that. I wouldn't want to live without that. There are a few things that Crossfire can do. you know? So, like, is there a compelling reason? You would have to want to change. The compelling reason, I think, is that Express LRS is like where the development is today. And I've heard rumors that TBS is working on an updated version of Crossfire, a new Crossfire protocol, and maybe it'll have, but it's, if that's happening, who knows when it'll come out and who knows what it'll have. It's all sort of happening in a black box. Yeah, Blunty.
I gotta argue. Time to argue for the day. Okay.
Please.
We're talking about video links, right? And we're worried about video link latency at 30 milliseconds, right? So why are we not worried about Crossfire at 20 milliseconds on a 50 hertz link? I mean, like, there's a reason we have Express LRS, and it's because we don't have to run 50 hertz anymore, right?
I mean, that's fair. I can't argue with that.
I mean, I don't.
You
I just
care
think
about
it
the
should
latency.
be pointed out, like, I mean, some
That's
people
true.
would say, like, I don't want to fly a 45 millisecond link, you know, versus a 30 millisecond link, and that's the difference between a high packet rate on Express LRS and 50 hertz on Crossfire.
It's true. Crossfire technically has 150 hertz packet rate, but as soon as you get any, like, even a moderate distance away, it drops to 50 hertz. And at 50 hertz, the latency is something like 20 milliseconds. I don't trust that number, Blunty.
Well, yeah, 50 divided by 1,000, or 1,000 divided. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I would say if you've got it and you're not that worried about it, you can certainly continue to use it. But I think you should understand that, like, on the video link side, a lot of people are going to complain about more than 30 milliseconds. In the same way, you could upgrade Crossfire to Express LRS and shave off
That's true.
15 milliseconds in some cases. You know,
Yeah,
more.
it has to be pointed out that, and I hadn't thought of that, so fair point. I will point out, you know, retroactively, Photograph specifically says cinematic and long range flying, which are less latency sensitive applications than like racing and proximity freestyle. So he may not particularly care about that. I do think you're going to get more range if you fly Express LRS at 50 hertz. I think you're going to get more range per watt out of Express LRS than out of Crossfire. Just because Express LRS uses a more efficient modulation because it has a more efficient packet format. The other advantage, I suppose you could argue, is that with Express LRS, you have the option to also be in 2.4 gigahertz. In fact, you could run Gemini and you could switch back and forth. You could run both bands simultaneously. 900 megahertz sometimes has interference. 2.4 gigahertz sometimes has interference. With Express LRS, you have the option to do both. Whereas with Crossfire, you're stuck in 900. That's an argument. The other thing I'll say is that the TBS Tango 2, the gimbals are going to die eventually. And I don't think the Tango 2 is a particularly great form factor for a radio. It's compact. That's what it's got going for it. But in terms of like switches and stuff, like I would be motivated to be on a different radio as my daily driver. Obviously, you use it. So, yeah. I think if you, here's the thing, Photograph, here's what it comes down to, and we'll close out this question. If you're asking because you're over there in the Crossfire camp and you're like, I need it. Sometimes you ask that question and you're like looking for an excuse to switch. Yeah, do it. Absolutely. Express LRS, it has as good or better link performance than Crossfire. It has features that Crossfire doesn't. It has faster packet rates if you want lower latency. It has great range if you want lower packet rates. It can do almost everything Crossfire can do and more. The hardware is much cheaper. How much is a Crossfire receiver nowadays? I'm hearing people in the chat are saying $50. That, you know, I could look. I'm not going to. I don't care that much. Express LRS is cheaper. And it's like where a lot of the development is right now. But it's also going to be annoying. It's going to have a learning curve. You're going to be like, why is it so much more complicated to bind in Flash? Why can't I just push a button and be good to go? Like, there are some hassles that come with it. And so if you're like, I'm really happy with Crossfire, but I don't want to be missing out, you're not missing out. Like, you're missing out on some things, but you're also missing out on the hassle. So, you decide. But the main thing that ExpressLRS doesn't do today that Crossfire does, if you have any PWM outputs running off your Crossfire receiver. So some people, Crossfire receivers have extra pins, and you can just use those pins as PWM outputs to drive a servo or any other PWM peripheral. Not PWM. It's PWM. Servos are PWM, right? Yeah. If you're doing that, then ExpressLRS doesn't have a good solution for that today. You can buy an ExpressLRS PWM receiver, and then you can convert 2 of the PWM pins to serial, and the remaining PWM pins will stay PWM. But that's going to be much bigger than if you buy a serial receiver and just have 2 little servo wires coming off of it. Today, ExpressLRS doesn't have a good solution for, I want a little tiny serial receiver and I just want to run 2 extra PWM outputs off of it. Which is a shame, because many people are like, why would you want to do that? But there are people in the world who, like, you have 1 servo for like a camera tilt, okay? And you would say, okay, well, why don't I just run that off the flight controller, which you absolutely can do. And that's the workaround. But if you're already set up to run all your servos off the Crossfire receiver because you don't want to deal with Betaflight's bullshit servo mapping nonsense, then you're going to be annoyed if you go to ExpressLRS and find there isn't a great solution for that. WiseAsk says, I got a Meteor 75 Pro P1. I bought a standalone VTX from Beta FPV. You mean a VRX, I think. How do I extend the radio controller range? I'm going to assume your Meteor 75 Pro has ExpressLRS in it. 2 things you can do. You can increase the output power of your controller. Again, I don't know what controller you have, but some controllers you can turn the output power up. The other thing you can do is you can reduce your packet rate. In ExpressLRS, the faster the packet rate, the lower the latency, but also the lower the range, because nothing comes for free in this world. Alustare asks, can we start our FPV simulation in a gaming controller? You can, but it's much harder to fly with a gaming controller than with a proper RC controller. The short little sticks are made for gaming. They're not made for RC. And I know you think, well, I fly in games and I play, I have plenty of precision. It's not the same. The game is designed for use with the game controller, and so it helps you out. It has things like aim assist and so forth. And an RC controller has none of that. You're just in control of the drone. And when you fly, if you take a pilot who is used to an RC controller and give him a game controller, they're going to fly like shit. You just don't have as much precision on the sticks. And some of that is the hardware itself, and some of that is just the sticks are so damn short. So you would be better to spend $50 or $60 on an RC controller like a Radio Master Pocket. But you can do it on a game controller. It's just going to be shitty. It's going to be shitty and hard. Niyahime, thank you for being a Discord server member and a patron. If you want to join my Patreon, there's a link in the video description of all my videos. And it's the simplest way for you to support the channel. It costs you less than a pack of props a month. Now, everybody watching this is probably already patrons. Although, if you are patrons, why are you in the YouTube chat? You should be on the Discord server. That's where all the cool people hang out. Marco, I do remember the Hotel RC Link tests. Good times. I was on a trip, and Immersion RC Ghost released. And I put a Ghost transmitter, a Ghost receiver in my hotel room, and I walked down on the street, and I walked around the street to see how long the link went. It was a terrible test in terms of scientific rigor. It was just me, screwing around, seeing how we did. It was fun though. Walk down the stairs. Yeah. Getting back to the question, Niyahime, why are wings and fixed wings in general so underappreciated in FPV? Sad to see the original FPV platform being sidelined in recent years. I can tell you the reason that I switched to drones. Drones have the ability to fly in small, tight spaces like my yard. I got tired of going to the soccer field every time I wanted to fly my plane. And the other thing is, with a plane, kinda all you can do is you're just flying up in the sky. It gets boring after a while. And I know people love flying planes. They love aerobatics. There's all I'm not like trying to put down planes in general. I'm just saying my experience, I wanted to be able to fly around obstacles, to do precision flying, to do tricks and racing. I wanted to have something to interact with my drone. And flying a plane, there was nothing to really interact with up in the sky. And the thing to me that makes planes fun would be like long range flying, but then long range flying isn't legal and it's not safe because you might crash on top of somebody. It's difficult to do long range flying in a responsible way. That's my opinion anyway. And so I never really got into long range flying. The other thing about planes is if you try to do proximity flying and you crash, a plane is difficult to repair, whereas drones, you can crash and they oftentimes will survive a crash. So these are all the factors that I think steered people towards FPV drones over planes and wings and stuff. And they got really popular. But a lot of people still fly wings. The other thing is, like, wings have this massive cultural weight, cultural momentum around line of sight flying, right? And so the other thing that happens, I think, is that somebody gets into FPV, they want to fly planes, they go to a traditional flight field. The traditional flight field is entirely hostile to FPV in general, to the mindset of FPV flyers. FPV flyers are by and large self-taught. And so you go out to this field and they have a way that they want things done. And the way that they want things done, there's a reason behind it, but it's different. It's just a cultural difference. And so a lot of FPV pilots, their encounters with fixed wing are not positive encounters. And they find themselves being like, well, I don't want to hang out with those guys in that location because they're not doing the thing that I want to do. And then they go to FPV drones and they find a culture that appeals to them. Portal is End FPV asks, is the Cadix walk snail system the only one supporting head tracking? I'm trying to put an FPV backpack into a Tamiya Hornet. The thing is, Portal, anything can support FPV head tracking. You don't need to have head tracking built into the goggles. Now, I will say, Walk Snail has head tracking built into the goggles. HD0 has head tracking built into the goggles. And many analog goggles have a head tracker built in. Okay? The FPV system doesn't have to support head tracking. The goggle has to have a head tracker module that it can output. And then at that point, it's completely separate from the video link. What Walk Snail has done is they will include the head tracking data in the digital video link so that you don't need a separate head tracking link. But the way the head trackers have traditionally been done is you have a head tracker in the goggles. It outputs something over a trainer cable. That trainer cable gets plugged into your controller, and the head tracking data goes over the control link, which is just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just is an extra cable that you need. I guess that's a little annoying. But you can also there's an open source FPV head tracker. I'm trying to find it. Yep, this is it. So there's an open source FPV head tracker, github.com/head tracker. Oh, nice. And I've used this before with my DJI goggles. Even though DJI doesn't support head tracking, you just stick it onto the goggles literally with Velcro or double-sided tape. And it's a little module that you build. And yeah. And then you have a head tracker. So you can literally use a head tracker with any video system or goggles you want. You just have to build this device and stick it onto the outside of your goggles. Which you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, well then you need goggles with head tracking built in. It's a little more complicated, but you still have a lot of options. DJI is the only FPV video system that doesn't like sell a goggle with head tracking built in, and even DJI does have a head tracker built in. They just don't let you use it with the FPV system. You can only use it with DJI drones like the Avata. But Walksnail, HC0, and Analog, you can easily get goggles with head trackers built in. Sid Exter asks, what does my drone need to track time in races? Is it hardware or some setting? The way that timing in races typically works today is that it's based on the video transmitter signal. The timing device has a radio receiver that detects the video transmitter signal, and when the signal peaks, it counts that as a crossing. I made some videos about race timing, about rotor hazard. This is a good start.
That was easy.
This is a video about the nuclear hazard lap timer. I believe you can buy this. You don't need to pre-make it. Is it still available for sale? Because things change. It isn't a bad idea for you to just buy. Damn it. For you to just buy a pre-made one, I gotta say. Sadly, this company seems to be out of existence. Damn it. Let me try a little harder to find this guy. Nope. Nuclearquads.github.io. Nuclear Quads. Maybe he stopped selling on Etsy. So you can build this kit yourself. He sold pre-assembled ones. Nuclear hazard pre-assembled timers.
Hello, this is an introduction to the...
And these are pretty cool. Please keep selling them, because not everybody wants to build their own damn timer. Nuclear Quads, that's where I was. Shop, there we go. Ah, there we go, perfect. So you can buy a pre-made race timer as well as a kit. It's a little hard to figure out where the frick to buy them, sadly. I guess you could just email this guy. This is a great timer. It's open source, right? The Rotor Hazard is open source. This guy's just selling kits to build them. This is the most full-featured timer. Now, you don't need the $255 race event timer. That's one that will track between 4 and 8 channels for racing. If you're just trying to practice yourself, you could get this Nuclear Hazard Fission kit, which is, I believe it's a single channel, $65 for the kit, and you build it yourself. And could you do it yourself a little bit cheaper? I don't think you could, because you would have to buy more of everything than you would need. So this is well worth doing. But it's up to you. There are other timers out there. There are other timers out there that use the camera on your phone. Now, this is cool because you don't need any additional hardware. And this is just an app that you can download. Basically, what you do is you put your phone down facing the start-finish gate, and then you align this blue line with the start-finish gate, and it uses image processing to detect when you've crossed the lap. Here, like you can see right here, it's detecting when you've passed. And this is great. I don't remember how much this app is, or if it even costs money, because I already purchased it or licensed it or whatever. I guess I could go in like incognito mode. Yeah, install. I think it's free. Or maybe I don't remember. But if you just want to start timing your laps today, this is the simplest way to do it. It won't work with more than one person flying. It can't distinguish between your drone and somebody else's drone. Is the limitation. But if you're just flying by yourself, this is well worth it. So, all right. Bunty, anything pop up? Any questions or comments that I need to address before we move on?
No. People are just mentioning some other timers, but I'm not sure that. Like Rect has a timer, but it's $100 for a solo timer.
Is it pre-built?
Yes.
I mean, currently, I was not able to find a pre-built lap timer on Nuclear Hazard's site, so this is well worth shouting out. Well, you know, Rect is a cool guy too. It's a store worth supporting. $100 for a pre-built solo timer. What firmware does it run? Is it Rotor Hazard? No, it is FPV Sim Timer. I tested FPV Sim Timer before, and I think the licensing was annoying. Does this come with a license? I don't remember. I remember the licensing of this being annoying. The pricing. This is a simulator. This is not the lap timer. Lap timer.
The timer, if you scroll down. No, timer's there if you scroll down.
Where is it? Pricing. Timer event. Yeah. Monthly access to the basic version is $20 a month or a $500 license. Surely not. Here is permanent access to the Duo Racer version, a $40 license. That might be, you could argue that that's okay. The thing is, for $500, like that's a slap in the face. Okay? Because Rotor Hazard is free. The software is free and open source, and the hardware you could buy you could buy it pre-built from Nuclear Hazard for way less than a $500 license. So the idea that you're asking anyone to pay $500 for your, let's face it, probably inferior lap timer compared to Rotor Hazard, no, that's a slap in the face. I believe. Also, I believe. One second, Blenny. I think I remember that they used to have a different pricing scheme where the personal timer was also a monthly license, and I was like, forget it. At least they have here a nice $40. You may say, well, that's too much, but at least there is an option to get permanent access to the personal license. Go ahead, Blenty.
If you scroll down, as far as I know, those are the solo licenses. And if you go on the left, I think you can use the starter. You can't upload logs. You don't get advanced analysis, but you do get timer solo for free.
It just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. That's all. It's just like...
I'm just letting you know it's not $40. You know what I mean?
Well, this is the Duo. Oh, the Duo is 40. I see. Yeah, you're pointing out if you're solo, you can try it for free. Fair enough.
That's, you only pay for like more stuff.
I acknowledge that that's true.
Also, I put in the chat.
But does it have callouts? Does it have voice callouts? Because if it doesn't have voice callouts, it doesn't say. Never mind. Okay, go ahead, Plenty.
I also put. They also make a timer that's in the chat. FPV Sim does.
I mean, presumably it's similar to the lap timer. Get timer V3 Mahjong. Yeah. $68. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. I have that software. I don't know. I've complained about their pricing. I remember complaining about their pricing and their subscription model, and it's a little, just kind of like puts, you know, bad taste in my mouth. I don't know what to tell you. All right. How good is the Holy Bro X650? That's their Pixhawk development kit, right? I built that. I built this. Did I build this exact one? I might have built the X550. This one looks a little different than what I built. Excuse me. It's fine. I think it's a good introduction to Pixhawk and ArduPilot. If you've never done an ArduPilot build before and you just want to focus on learning to like set up ArduPilot and you don't want to deal with buying hardware and stuff, no, this is not the exact one that I built. This is a little different. The Holy Bro kit is nice because they just give you all the hardware and then you can focus on putting the drone together and learning about ArduPilot without having to learn about... now, I say that as someone who has extensive experience building drones and just wanted to dip my toe into the ArduPilot world. If this was your first drone, still fine. Like, it's relatively easy to build. There's little to none soldering. It's all plugs. I don't think there's any soldering. So, yeah. $1,100, that's a little bit high. That's I don't know if you're getting $1,100 of value out of this. Where's the X550? Dev kits, the X500, I think, is the one that I built. Yeah, the PX4 development kit. So the X500 for $579, like, it's just as mediocre a drone. Like this X650 drone, what are you going to do with it other than just like, I don't know, I guess I'll fly it around. Like, it's not really going to do much. It's just kind of there as a test bed and development. So, like, why wouldn't you just buy the X500, which is just as mediocre a drone, and will give you just the same learning experience in terms of setting up Pixhawk and so forth, rather, ArduPilot. And it's significantly cheaper. So, Pixhawk 6X, 669. But it was fine. I still have it. I still use it as my ArduPilot sort of test bed. Juha, thank you for 10 euros. Your live stream notification revealed a hidden tablet that my children were hiding. They're not supposed to watch YouTube, but they were sneaky. Oh, man, I feel bad for ratting out your children. I'm on your children's side. I'm still a kid at heart, so when it comes to, whose side am I on? The kids who are being sneaky or the parents who are trying to keep the kids down? Not with my own kids, obviously. I would want to know about the sneaky tablet. But I'll absolutely undermine other parents' authority, 100%. Just not my own. That's called special pleading. How much longer do we have in FPV before we are all considered terrorists? Thank you for $5 for Shiz FPV. I wouldn't normally answer a question like this, but since you left me a $5 super chat, hold on a second. I have to check in on the Illuminati group chat that I'm in. It's on Signal. Doesn't surprise you, right? The Illuminati says 9 months. 9 months, and then we'll all be considered terrorists. Thank you for your super chat. OD5, thank you for 10 euros. I had a crash, and I have to replace my 1604 4040 kV motors. My shop only had 1604 3800 kV. Do I have to change anything? No, you're good to go. You're fine. That won't change. Like, theoretically, a change in kV will change the amount of thrust that the drone makes and will change your PID tune. Unless you tuned your PID tune to, like, the ultimate nth degree, if you just had kind of a basic PID tune, then you're fine. Maybe knock the master multiplier down, like, 1 notch. But, no, it's probably fine. All right, we're caught up on Super Chats. Hiroshimi. Let's take some more recent chats, recent questions. I've been taking questions from the top of the queue. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of the queue. Joshua, I recently set up my GPS using your video. When I test failsafe, it raises altitude and hovers. Is that because it's too close to home? I'm going to guess that what's happening is that you're on Betaflight 2025.12, and so you've got, like, altitude hold and return to home, like, on the same aux mode or something. And what's happening is it's refusing to do return to home, and it's doing position hold. You have to. I would want to look at your DVR. I would want to look at what it's saying. You should have two things on screen. One is the warnings, and one is the flight mode. Okay, these are two OSD elements you could turn on. Warnings will tell you things like, hey, you can't do GPS rescue, and here's why. And flight mode will tell you if it's actually in GPS rescue or some other flight mode. Without that information, I can't tell you what's happening, but that's the information I would need to troubleshoot the situation.
Email that to jb@joshuabardwell.com.
You can. jb@joshuabardwell. I'll take a look. You can email me. Blunty, I haven't checked the bingo board. Let's just double check. Question about Express LRS. I think we got that. Clips channel mentioned. I talked about putting a clip up.
Oh, you just did a frame thing. I guess that was a quad thing.
I don't know if that was a frame choice. I'm not going to give myself that one. Question about motor size. We got a question about motor KV. I don't know if I would count that.
I
talked about
you earlier.
Latency. Did you interrupt? Okay. We did have a question about latency. Crossfire versus the LRS. I showed some FPV stores for sure. I mean, have we had a technical issue? It seems like this whole stream is technical issues. Bardwell travel story. I talked about my vacation a little bit. We didn't talk about video games. Bardwell heavily discusses food. Confused. Question about radios. Do we have a question about radios? I think we had a question about radios.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a pinned comment. You can make your own bingo board and play Q&A live stream bingo. Actually, Blunty, I have not actually had this up. I normally have this up. I didn't think to do that this time. Let me just real quick do that. There we go. Now we can play bingo as we go. Okay. Make sure. I haven't got a bingo yet. Here's a super chat from Joe Stick. Thank you for 10 euros. I love flying 7-inch, 5-inch, 2.5-inch, but 7 and 5-inch are too big, and 2.5-inch 4S needs lipos. Flying means mission prep. What do you think of that 1S Lion drone by Mediocre Nerd? I don't know. Generally, the 1S 18650 drones, I think that they're heavy for their performance. I think that generally in that size class, you do better with like a small lipo, but it depends on what you're trying to do. Medicore
I think he did
Nerd.
21700 version of it, if that's the one I saw.
Building a better 1S lithium-ion drone. This is Mediocre Nerd.
In today's video, I
That makes
design
more
and build
sense.
an improved 1S lithium-ion quadcopter.
So this is reminding me very much of the, a lot of nano long-range drones. Most recently, Newbie Drone came out with one, the Newbie Drone Lion B.
There are a number of 18650 drones on the market, and while they are quite fun, there is still tons of room for improvement. This custom quad is more durable, fits most electronics,
too
and can
easy.
run off a single 18650 or 21700. Lithium-ion batteries have much higher energy density than lithium polymer batteries.
true.
For example, this 18650 has a 3000 milliamp capacity
love
and
writing
weighs
on a whiteboard.
just under 45 grams. These three
This is
lipos
great.
weigh
I'm
48
so in.
grams and have a combined capacity of 2000 milliamps. That's a 50%
Milliamp hours.
increase in
Milliamp hours.
capacity at about the same weight. Flight times on these little quads have become so good that the limiting factor on range is now the electrical components. Either the video transmitter isn't powerful enough, it has the wrong receiver antenna type, or maybe the flight controller doesn't even support GPS. Let's fix some of these problems. My goals for this build
I don't know what it is. I'm so in when I see you writing on a whiteboard with a dry erase. I'm like, I'm in.
a higher quality camera, at least 5 kilometers of range, and a frame that doesn't break after just a
This is a
couple
very
crashes.
by the way, this is a very nicely made YouTube video too. This is very nicely structured.
For the frame, on my last build, I used a Crux 3, which is extremely light, but lacks durability and mounting options. There isn't anything on the market that ticks all the boxes, so I've designed my own. The front arms extend straight out to the sides in a dead cat layout, allowing for an unobstructed camera view. It has plenty of mounting options and reinforced arms for added strength. Thanks to the Z1 desktop CNC machine, I can manufacture this straight from my home. Normally, I'd have to wait weeks.
And that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. 145K views. Makara, I don't know if he bought this or not. Makara would 1000% send you a free CNC machine for literally 5 seconds in this video and a name drop, if you're wondering. I gotta see if Makara... That's pretty cool. I never thought about this. I got somewhere in my inbox, there's an offer, maybe it's from Makara, to send me a desktop CNC. And I was like, well, what am I gonna... I could cut microframes out of CNC. That's kind of cool.
Weeks for each prototype to arrive, but not anymore. It's nice and compact, fitting right on my workbench. But don't let its small size fool you, this little machine can handle loads of different materials. Carbon fiber is notoriously difficult to CNC, so I was a bit worried. It's extremely abrasive, dulling tools quickly, but I've already cut around a dozen sheets with one of the included carbide bits,
What's he doing
and
with
it
the
still
tape?
works great. One of my favorite parts is how easy it is to
hold it
use.
down?
To switch out the tool bits, simply
Interesting.
pull down the lever and it releases it. Put the new bit in, put the lever back up, and it's locked in place. Here the machine calibrates itself using this laser module. Switch back to your chosen tool and watch the magic happen as your creation comes to life. I am a complete
I gotta get me one of these.
beginner with CNC and was able to get up and going after just a couple.
right,
Anyone who's
so
thousands
ad
of
for the
dollars
Makara.
just to get started.
Oh. Maybe I don't need to cut carbon fiber in my house.
Well, the Z1 starts right around $1,000 for their pre-sale special offer, making it one of the most affordable CNC machines
That's a lot of waste. That's a lot of waste. Woof.
currently available. A huge thanks to Makara. This video would literally not be possible
so they did
without the
sponsor him.
Z1.
That's great.
If anyone's
More power to
interested in it, is super light, more frame. It has more flex. A hub with in the controller comes with 12 transmission distance. To hold the camera, here is a durable TPU canopy with built-in GPS. Crux build, but it hovers at 30% throttle compared to 45% on the old one. I can thank the 15,000 kV motors for that. Even without tuning, it's handling well. Now let's try a full throttle takeoff.
Arming.
Is that the 18650 or the
3,
21700?
2,
I can't tell.
1.
It feels pretty similar to the Crux build, which again is very impressive with this heavier digital setup. I now have amazing video quality and a powerful VTX for range, so the big question is, how long does this build fly for? Man, I'm such a
Probably
dork
a
for
long
leaving the
freaking time.
menu open on the screen.
So I like dorky.
Very dorky.
I'm not expecting to beat the Crux.
Your girlfriend is not impressed by your FPV.
Is 25-minute flight time with it being, which would be plenty of time to explore. And I am trying to get at least 20 minutes of 20-minute
What'd you
mark
get?
with just 2.45 volts to spare.
Ooh, no, 2.45 is too low. Too low. Too low. You're killing that battery. 2.5 is the absolute limit, so that's the max. Yeah,
And while
dropped
this
out of the
can
sky, didn't
definitely
it?
be improved, I was super happy with this result. It's well known that the old nickel-plated steel contacts on the first 18650 quads performed quite poorly. That's why I've always used directly connected plugs. Now my question is, how does this battery holder with
Yeah, but that defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose? You want to be able to just drop in. You don't want to deal with this bullshit. You want to just drop in a cell. At that point, well, I mean, you might as well use a LiPo, except the energy density is worse. So
copper
fine.
contacts compare? To test
Copper
it, I've
contacts,
secured the
that's
quad in
slick.
place and will run a full throttle recorded via the goggles. All variables
Should be able
such
to
as
measure
fire
the-
gauge and
measure the
length are kept
resistance,
as
right?
similar as possible. The throttle was held at 100% for 10 seconds with each trial.
Just measure the voltage drop. So pull the amps, measure the voltage drop. I guess you'd need accurate current measuring.
Here's the OSD with all the playback data that I recorded and logged to lithium-ion FPV. This is a new website co-founded by John Nesson, a fellow FPV pilot, and myself. One of the biggest challenges in FPV is the lack of standardized tests. To change that,
Tablets,
by
huh?
creating results, detailed quadcopter, and all kinds of FPV gear, basic lower resistance,
That's pretty cool.
throttle load, or power delivery. And here's a graph displaying the voltage under 100% throttle load over 10 seconds. There's even a drop down of the raw data for any nerd like me.
That's very cool.
30-minute mark.
Okay, here's what I'll say. We've watched enough with the React. I feel like I'm turning into what's his name? Yeah, the long-haired guy who just reacts to things.
Voice critical?
Moist Critical, yeah. What's his actual name, though? Starts with an A.
Charlie?
No, it starts with an A.
Oh, his name's Charlie, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about Asmongold?
Asmongold, that's what I'm talking about, not Moist
Oh,
Critical.
God. Don't,
those are two different guys. Yeah,
Nobody's Asmongold here. We're not Asmongold.
there you go. Asmon and Moist aren't the same guy? They're not the same guy? Penguin Z0? Moist Critical?
No.
Okay. I mean, these are different people? Like, okay. I feel like I'm off the hook for if you told me those were the same guy, just like, a year apart, don't tell me you could pick those guys out of a lineup reliably after 3 beers. Come on. Okay, anyway. And my point is, where this channel isn't turning into a reaction channel, so we're going to cut this short. But thank you for sharing that with me. So here's what I like about that. I'm not as passionate about Lion drones, 1S Lion drones, as Mediocre Nerd is. But I love to see a nerd get passionate about a topic and try to improve something like this. And so if I was going to build one, I would follow his steps, because he's clearly thinking about what are the deficiencies in the current way things are done and how can I improve them. And I really dig that. So yes, more of that. And I also love that he set up a website to like track and gather data. Fantastic. I'm a big fan. So, what do I think of the drone? I don't know. It's probably good, because like I can tell when someone is like, I feel like I can tell when someone's full of shit and talking out of ego, which by the way doesn't mean that they're wrong. And I can tell when someone is just a nerd who is trying to do cool things, which doesn't mean they're right. But I do think that there's a tendency that people like this who are like, I'm just going to do nerdy things because I just think they're cool and I'm going to tell you what I did. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of ego or defensiveness in any of it. It's just, here's what I did and here's why I did it. Like, chances are that process is going to produce good results, as opposed to, I'm trying to sell you something and my thing is the best. Which is another way that people present information. I like this. I like this guy. I like this project. And I think he's a cool drone. So, thank you, Gross J83 for $10. My current reading from the ADC is 8 to 9 amps while disarmed. If I calibrate it in beta flight, it reads too low when I'm flying. Any ideas? Yeah, the problem then is likely that your offset is wrong. So a calibration has 2 parameters. One is the scale, and the scale sets the slope of the line. Does that make sense? You've got millivolts per amp. The sensor is a voltage from 0 to 3.3 volts. And you've got millivolts per amp, which sets the slope of the line. But then also there is an offset which sets the y-intercept of the line. Okay? So 0 volts is not necessarily 0 amps. And for every sensor, there is going to be a scale and an offset. If you set the scale correctly, what you've done is you have made two lines that intercept in one place, right? But the y-intercept is not correct. So usually the offset is 0 and the scale is the only thing you need. But if you have calibrated accurately at, say, 10 amps, but then it's off at 0 amps, that suggests that the offset is non-zero, and it's very difficult to figure out the correct values. It's very difficult to figure out the correct values. What you would have to do is you would have to calibrate at 1 amp, 2 amps, 3 amps, 4 amps, 5 amps, 10 amps, and draw that line and figure out the slope of that line and the y-intercept of that line, and that would allow you to extrapolate both the offset and the scale, and then maybe it would work. But the other thing is, a lot of times on current sensors, they're very nonlinear, and so the nonlinearity, if you had a perfectly linear current sensor, then if you were to measure the offset at 1 amp, 2 amps, 3 amps, 5 amps, etc., all the way up to, let's say, 20 amps, you get those data points, they'll make a line, and then you just draw that line and you see what the slope and the y-intercept is, and you're good to go. But what you're actually going to find is that that line will be a curve, because there's also a nonlinearity in the current sensor itself, and that's going to make it even harder to find the right value. And I don't have a good answer for you there. It's very hard to do correctly. The actual thing I would do is I would try to get the numbers from GEPRC. No, I'm sorry. It's the flight controller. The calibration values, if you're doing analog current sensing from the ESC, it's the flight controller that determines the calibration values. I think. No, it's the ESC. No, it's the ESC. No, I'm sorry, because the sensor is in the ESC. It's just, yeah, I'm sorry. So contact GEPRC. That's the bottom line. Contact GEPRC and see if they can give you those values. People are wondering what I'm drinking. It's literally just water with a raspberry lemonade flavor squirt in it. It's nothing interesting. I mean, maybe that's interesting to you. Sunshine wants to know, does anybody actually use Betaflight for hexacopters or octocopters? Yeah, for sure. I don't want to learn Pixhawk or ArduPilot to rebuild an older multi-rotor. You don't have to. 1,000% Betaflight can do hexacopters and octocopters. The biggest disadvantage is that Betaflight does not have the ability to reshuffle the mixer if you lose a motor. So let's say you have an octocopter. Well, the advantage of an octocopter is if you lose a motor, you can keep flying, right? Because you still have plenty of motors. You could lose 2 motors. You could theoretically lose up to 4 motors on an octocopter, as long as they were the right 4 motors, and it would just turn into a quadcopter. But here's the problem. In order for that to work, the flight controller has to recognize that a motor has failed and redo the mixer to take that motor out of circulation. What happens with Betaflight when you have a failed motor on an octocopter is that motor goes to full because that motor is no longer making thrust. So Betaflight drives that motor up and it drives all the other motors down. And so the whole quad just falls out of the sky, basically. So if you need that redundancy with a hexacopter or an octocopter, where if you lose a motor, you're able to keep flying, Betaflight can't do that. iNav can't do that. I think that Pixhawk or ArduPilot are the only ones today that can do that. I'm not even 100% sure they can do that, but they can kind of do everything. So, like, I would assume they can do that. I discovered this when there was a hexacopter, Bind and Fly. I don't even remember who made it. Maybe it was Flywoo. I think it might have been Flywoo. And I was like, great. You could lose a motor and still fly. It just wouldn't take off. You raise the throttle. I just took a prop off the motor. The motor with no prop goes, and all the other motors go, because the flight controller is like, well, if this motor's not making thrust, the other motors can't make thrust either, or it will become unstable. So, didn't work. But if all you want to just do is fly, yeah, you can fly it. Star Shadow wants to know, for live streaming, what are some pros and cons of different systems? The number one thing you don't want is an analog output. If you have an analog signal, getting that into a live stream is extremely difficult. The reason is that you say, well, I could just buy a $20 analog to HDMI adapter off of Amazon. Yes, you can. The problem is that FPV analog signals are so shitty. Like that analog to HDMI adapter that you buy off of Amazon is expecting a signal from like an actual, like a VCR, like an actual good quality like signal. And so when you feed it an FPV signal, it just blue screens all the time. It's just like, the signal is so bad, there's nothing here. Whereas FPV goggles, they never blue screen, they just show you the static. So that won't work. I mean, it'll sort of work in it, but really badly. If you're going to use analog to live stream, you have to buy HD0 goggles or the HD0 monitor. That is the single best way of getting an analog to HDMI feed, because it does it correctly. It just sends the static out the HDMI. It doesn't blue screen. Literally, if you want a live stream analog feed, HD0 goggles or the HD0 monitor are like the only way to actually get like solid, good, reliable results where your audience sees what you're seeing instead of seeing blue screen all the time. If somebody has a better way of doing it or an equivalent way of doing it, tell me, but that's my belief. HD0 box goggles, same thing. Any HD0 analog device or Divimath analog device with an HDMI out does the conversion really well. The other thing you could do is you just use a digital system which has native HDMI out. Now that could be Walksnail, it could be HD0. That's it. And then with DJI, it's very easy to use Cosmo Streamer. And Cosmo Streamer just gives you HDMI out and works great. So. Ciati says, I've had really good luck with the SkyDroid $25 VRX that Amazon used to sell. Yeah, that'll work, Ciati. I mean, obviously it'll work. You use it. My thing about that has been that I think it has shitty range. But if you're just doing like close-up whoop stuff, and it's not real expensive. Oh, currently unavailable. Whoops. Can you still buy it?
We already linked one in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, that's what I clicked on, but it's out of set. It's not
okay.
It's out of stock.
Gotcha. There were a few different off-brands of them too.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they were called though.
Maybe AliExpress. Anyway, yeah, I just don't think that's a very good receiver. Like, it's going to have so like you're going to get situations where the pilot has good video, but the audience can't. The thing about the HD0, and again, the price is through the roof. I'm not disputing that. The thing about the HD0 though is that the audience will always see what the pilot is seeing, because the HDMI feed is a literal representation of what the goggles are seeing and what the pilot is flying off of. With something like the SkyDroid, the pilot could have good feed, the audience could have shitty feed because the pilot has better goggles, and that as a streamer, like, I want to know what the audience is seeing, and that gives me pause. But it's definitely not expensive, and that certainly goes a long way. Star Shadow Cosmo Streamer is ready for prime time. There are many professionals, like, who, frankly, I think, well, I shouldn't say most. Many professionals who fly DJI use Cosmo Streamer for production type things. The DJI Fly option is good too. The DJI Fly app is good. You could certainly use the DJI Fly app for zero money. But doing screen sharing with DJI Fly, it can be, sometimes there's glitches there. Danish, there's a problem with the G2 and the O3 and the O4 where, for whatever reason, a DJI Fly with the HDMI didn't work. I can't remember this. I can't remember the reason. So what you're saying is, why don't you just buy one of these? It's a little USB dongle for your phone. And it gives you, hang on, I'm trying to get this on camera. It gives you HDMI and USB. There you go. HDMI and USB. And the problem is which device is the host? Go ahead, Blunty.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think he's talking about you can buy an Android tablet with HDMI on it.
Oh, that would work. Yep, Android tablet with HDMI screen sharing will work. You can also, with Samsung, you could do like wireless screen sharing. That'll work. But if you are trying to do an adapter like this that has HDMI and USB, it doesn't. My recollection is that it doesn't work, and it has something to do with like which device is the host device. The phone has to be the host device for HDMI to work, or something like that. I don't remember. There's a problem. So basically, Cosmo Streamer is a way to do it that definitely works. Knee Photograph, thank you for another 30 Polish Slotty. Can ELRS do beacon mode? No. ELRS cannot do beacon mode like the Crossfire Diversity Receiver. It cannot do that. There is no equivalent. Mark Day 21, thank you for $5. I got a deal on like new HD02s with rapid fire for $350. That's a good deal. 100 grams lighter than the HD02 with a much bigger FOV. Thought it was worth mentioning. Love the channel. Yeah, that's a good deal. $350 for the rapid fire with HD02s is a steal. If you can get a deal like that, by all means, go for it. Not everybody is going to be able to get a deal like that, though. Can a broken ESC FET burn out a motor? 1000% it can. The FET's job is to turn on and off the flow of electricity. When the FET breaks, sometimes it fails short, and basically runs full unrestricted battery voltage through the motor and fries it. Can PID tuning be learned with a tiny whoop indoors? Yeah, I mean, theoretically, according to Mark Spatz, you can do a basement PID tune just with wobble testing in angle mode and still get an okay PID tune. The other thing is, if you're flying a tiny whoop indoors, you could tune the tiny whoop indoors, because indoors is the entire flight envelope of the tiny whoop. So whatever you're going to PID tune for, you're going to be able to do it. It's not like you're PID tuning indoors, then you're going to go outside and be at full throttle. Like, the tiny whoop is designed to fly indoors. So.
You mean Brian White, right?
Who'd I say? Brian White.
Mark Spatz.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Brian White. Basement PID tune. Thank you. I'm getting old. Thank you for keeping me honest, Blunty. I would have kicked myself about that later. I'm like, oh, fuck, how did I not catch that? What's up with SpeedyBee flight controllers? Don't know. I don't know. Just one of those weird things that happens in the world where suddenly a company, like, you wonder if they got in trouble with the Chinese government or something. Do you know something, Blunty?
Well, word on the street is they got in trouble with the Chinese government. I mean, that is what was told.
That is often what happens.
From what I have heard through multiple sources, but nothing really properly sourced, like we would put on like a real story or something, right? But like the back channels claim that SpeedyB was told by the government they were no longer allowed to directly sell to any Western country or anyone related with war. So they are back channeling any of the ones you see through places like AliExpress through third-party vendors. But the problem is there's also a lot of clones. And at some point, I think they stopped producing V4s and started V5s, and then there was some issue. So I think the status is very up in the air at this point, from what I understand.
What happens? And this is not like an official expose. This is just my impression. But my impression is based on living in this hobby, in the business side of this hobby in a way that like a typical hobbyist doesn't. So like my impression has some validity, but I do want you to know like that there's also some just like this is my read on what's happening, not necessarily like fully supported with facts. But my impression is that a lot of these Chinese companies, they know that. Now, this is a fact. If Chinese companies are not allowed to sell for military use, they're not allowed to export for military use. Like that, they will get in big, big trouble if they sell outside of China to military products. They're explicitly prohibited from doing that. And so you've got these drone companies, and they know that a lot of the people buying their products are using them for prohibited purposes. Whether that's the product is being sold directly to a Ukrainian company it's putting it in drones that are going to be used in Ukraine, or whether that's some other like international entity that is using them for some prohibited purpose, like a military related purpose. And they're happy to make the money, right? But they need plausible deniability, and they need enough of a cover that they don't get in trouble with the Chinese government. And you see some of these companies go for a long time without getting in trouble with the Chinese government, like T-Motor and T-Hobby. T-Motor, in fact, is on a United States prohibition list because the U.S. government has designated them as like a Chinese military. They support the Chinese military in some way that they got put on. And I don't know how an FPV motor company got to be high enough profile that anybody from the U.S. government knew they existed, right? So like on some level, there's like, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. But then at the same time, T-Motor, so they've rebranded as T-Hobby. But as far as I know, it's the same company. And somehow they're still selling all over the world. And, like, are some of those T-Hobby motors ending up in military? I mean, sure. And somehow they don't seem to have gotten in any trouble with the Chinese government. Nobody's gone to prison. Then you hear about companies like Diatone a while back. I heard a story from somebody who worked at Diatone, and he was like, the whole company got raided. The CEO's going to prison. The Chinese government has taken over the company. Like, Diatone's website is still up, and I think the company is still technically in existence, but my understanding is, like, somebody from Diatone went to a trade show, and like, if you go to a trade show and it's the toy and hobby trade show, you're not going to get in trouble, but if you go to a trade show and it's like a military trade show, then you're, and basically Diatone flew too close to the sun, and the Chinese government went, no, screw you. And somebody went to prison, and a whole bunch of other people just left the company and hoped that they weren't going to go to prison. And there were fines, and the Chinese government took over the company, and now they run the company. And it's weird because, like, you see companies, and they're tiny companies that you assume they're flying under the radar. And somebody comes along and they buy 500 drones. And it's like, well, who do you think bought 500 drones? Was it a hobbyist? Duh, no. But, like, yeah, they cash the check and they don't ask too many questions and everything is fine. And then you see other companies, and for whatever reason, they get on somebody's radar. Now, the side of it that I can't speak to is I assume that some companies continue to exist because they're bribing the right people. And that's not a dig at the Chinese government. That's a thing that happens in one form or another all over the world. But like, So maybe the reason such and such company got taken down is somebody didn't pay the right person off, or I don't know. But you see this happen. A company like SpeedyBee sells flight controllers, and they sell flight controllers to hobbyists. But in today's world, like, unless you explicitly draw a hard line, like AKK video transmitters. I saw a press release from AKK where they said, we will not sell more than X number of video transmitters to any one customer. And we will not sell to resellers. We will only sell direct. Like, it really felt like this, I think it was AKK, was legitimately trying to make it harder for people to buy their equipment in large quantities and then repurpose them to military use. It seemed like they were sincerely trying to comply with the rules. And you see other companies where it's more of like a, you know, what we don't know won't hurt us. And I think eventually those companies sometimes get taken down. And I wonder if that's what we saw with SpeedyBee. No way to know for sure. But if you're wondering, where did all the SpeedyBees go? I don't know where the SpeedyBees went, but I've seen this play out before. An FPV company gets very, very big and very, very popular, and then they're selling 20,000 flight controllers a month, 30,000 flight controllers a month. Well, obviously, it's not all going to hobbyists, but they're just happy to cash the checks, and then eventually, suddenly, they disappear. And a lot of times, that means the Chinese government cracked down on them. So, Plenty, anything more we want to say about that from the chat or anything? I guess I'll take that as a no.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Real Havapende. I assume that's a Havapende. Thank you for $5. I'm sure you get this a lot, JB, but I'm building my first 5-inch drone. Any tips for someone building their first 5-inch drone? Use a smoke stopper the first time you plug it in. Learn to solder. Learn to solder. If you are not, like, moderately good at soldering, if you're like, my soldering is, it's okay, probably take a few hours and buy a solder practice board and really work on getting better at soldering before you try to solder on your expensive hardware. And then when you first test it, when you first fly it somewhere safe. Don't fly it somewhere where it's going to crash into a person or a building or a car, or you're going to fly it out over a field and never see it again. The chat is suggesting that Rate FPV is SpeedyBee. That's the other thing that happens. The company gets taken down, the CEO goes to prison or gets a fine, and then the company just starts up again under a different name. Welcome to China. Is Rate FPV SpeedyBee? That would be great. $50 for a F405 stack. Rate FPV! The new SpeedyBee. Don't say that. They'll get in trouble. Ciati, why does Rate FPV being SpeedyBee make a lot of sense? Why does that make sense to you? What do you know? I asked the Illuminati a question by direct message earlier. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? Joshua Pierce says, I'm struggling to update firmware on a SpeedyB F405 and getting no joy from the Discord. Why wouldn't it work? I feel like I've tried everything.
I think he was saying in chat it might be, or at least he has not tried yet, removing his hardware because he's having trouble getting into bootloader mode, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So
Sure.
sometimes something that's connected to a UART will make it hard for... But we'll take the... So the flight controller can go into bootloader mode on the USB port by holding down the bootloader button. But the chip, the microcontroller, has the ability to go into bootloader mode on other UARTs. The idea being, like, let's say you've got this chip and it's buried inside of an appliance and you can't get at it to put it into bootloader mode. What you could do is you could, just as you power it up, you could start sending data on a UART. And when the chip detects that a UART is alive at power up time, it's like, oh, you must be trying to update my firmware. And it goes into bootloader mode on that UART to accept the firmware. Except what happens with drones is, depending on the design of the flight controller, if you've got a receiver on that UART and it's sending telemetry data, or you've got a GPS on that UART, these are the two most common things. I suppose a digital VTX sometimes does it as well. The flight controller powers up, it sees the transmissions on the UART, and it goes into bootloader mode on UART 1 or UART 4, at which point it is not going to go into bootloader mode on the USB, and it will not boot up either. It just is stuck in bootloader mode and it just doesn't work. So that is a thing, and the solution is to disconnect everything from the UARTs and see if that fixes it. Juicy Girls says, what do you think of the idea to attach a second ELRS receiver to a buzzer and turn it on only when the battery ejects to make easier model? Why would you not just buy an FPV self-powered buzzer, like the V-Fly Finder? Why would you try it? Why would you DIY this? Like, I'm all about DIY, but like, this is, for $13, you can get the V-Fly Finder. It's just a solved problem. So, like, you're going to make how is what you're going to make better or cheaper than this? Go ahead, Blunty.
All right, here, real quick. Let's clear up a couple things. So the way he says it is to make model locator somewhere in the woods where buzzer is useless. Okay, so let me say a couple things.
Oh, he wants a radio model locator, like the Crossfire beacon. And then you'll find
Right.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is that, just in case you don't understand, like, yeah, this makes it so that when your battery ejects, it screams really loud. But if you're saying you're so far away that you can't hear the screaming in the middle of the woods, I think part of your problem is going to be that you're on the ground behind trees or in somewhere that you're not going to get a radio signal to, right? Like, I mean, that would be my concern is, like, I feel like if you're going to hear that buzzer's loud as shit. I mean,
You're going to be more likely to hear a buzzer. So here's how I would
feel
approach.
like you are.
Yeah.
Then try to get access to a drone that's like flipped upside down in the middle of a bush between a tree or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So the way I would approach this problem is twofold. Number one, self-powered buzzer. Number two, GPS on the drone. The GPS on the drone will give you the last known GPS coordinates, which will get you close enough to the drone probably to hear the buzzer. That's my take. A radio beacon is a thing that exists. The problem is, you're gonna want it to be at least 900 megahertz, if not lower frequency, in order to pick that signal up. I think that direction finding on an RF signal, I've had to do direction finding on an RF signal before. Like you crashed a drone out in a field and you still have signal, but you don't know where the drone is. And it's hard because your antenna is not very high gain. And so, like, doing the hotter, colder triangulation game to get... I was within 20 feet of the drone for 10 minutes like walking this way and the signal gets weaker and I turn back and like I'm like I know it's right freaking here, but I could not find it, especially because as you get close to it, the signal is just you lose directionality as you get close to the drone. The further away you are from the drone, the weaker the signal is, the more distinction there is between when you're pointed right at it and when you're not pointed at it. But then as you get closer, it's like kind of like no matter which way you turn, the signal is kind of strong. And so I'm like, I know it's right here, but I could not find it. A buzzer would have solved that problem. The other thing that you can do is you could put something like an AirTag on it. And an AirTag or similar is going to have the same problem with directionality, but the difference is that it has a lot more granularity on the distance. And so it's a lot easier to play the hot or colder game with an AirTag. Some AirTags can even do directionality, I think, although that may be an iOS thing. I'm not sure Android can do that. I'm not sure. But that's what I would do. I would not reinvent the wheel here. I would use existing solutions that work pretty well. My choice would be a GPS. Because, by the way, the GPS, you could also use return to home. You could also do other things. Like a GPS is just nice to have. The buzzer is kind of wasted, except when you crash. It's dead weight. But the GPS is nice to have. So I would do GPS to get my last known coordinates. And then I would do an audible buzzer. The other thing that I've done... this is a thing that I've done. And I don't do this very often because, number one, most of my drones don't have GPS, and number two, I don't often have an ATAC tablet. But here we go. If you have a GPS on your drone and you have an Edge TX and Express LRS, you can download a piece of software called ATAC, which is the Android Tactical Application Kit or something. And what you can do is you can plug your controller into the tablet and then set the tablet up. There's a guided tutorial about how to do this. It's on screen. And what it'll do is it'll show you the drone's location on screen. So a little hard for you to tell, but here's me and here's my car with a GPS on it. And this is handy. Can I show it can I actually show it working? No. Do we actually show it working? I'm not sure that I do. This is handy because if you just leave this running in the background, then when you crash your drone, you'll know exactly where it was. It's continually reading the last known GPS coordinates. You don't need to do, and you can see it on screen while you're flying. Well, you can't because you're in the goggles, but this is also pretty slick. I was out flying once. We were flying fixed wings. And one of the people we were flying with had a ground station set up with a screen, an FPV screen, and an ATAC tablet. And he had it tracking the aircraft. And one of the people who was flying lost video, crashed his aircraft. And we never would have found that thing, except right there on the tablet was the last known location. And these guys went out to recover it and found it sitting. The airplane had just coasted to a landing in a cornfield, and it was 50 feet off the road. You never would have seen it. And in fact, you never would have found it if you hadn't had GPS tracking. But when they got close, in fact, their controller reconnected, and it was like they got it its exact location because the GPS was still working. So as soon as the controller reconnected, they had telemetry, and they could just see on the ATAC map exactly where the drone was, where the aircraft was. It was pretty slick.
Chat wants to point out there's an Edge TX Lua script that will save your last location in that case.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, the problem is sometimes you're so far out you don't have telemetry, right? And then you're only going to get it in your video feed.
Right. That's a good point,
Can you
Bloody.
still on DJI goggles? Can you still hit the back button to see the last frame? Does
Yes,
that
you can.
exist?
Yep.
That used. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
DJI will record the last 10 seconds of the video. This Lewis script is good. It will pull. So the Lewis script doesn't remember the last GPS coordinates, though. If you lose telemetry, does it retain the last GPS coordinates? I think it does. I think it must, because I talked about this Lewis script in that same video. And it just generates the QR code so you can find the drone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when you lose telemetry on HDX, it just flashes and stays on that last input, right? I think that's what
I
happens
think so.
automatically.
Yeah. This is slick, though, because you just scan this with your phone and it brings it up in Google Maps. Boom. And then, as you said, Blunty, if you really care, you would want to put the GPS coordinates in your video so that you like, because you could lose telemetry, but you'll be able to get that DVR. Okay. And then one more thing, Sunshine points out, this is, if you really want to do it, you're going to get into something called Meshtastic, which is, it's kind of like an AirTag, but better. Well, it's better, it's bigger, heavier, and more expensive, but has much better range, and it's a mesh system. So what sometimes people will do is they'll put the Meshtastic tag on their aircraft, and then if you just take like a DJI drone and put it 500 feet in the air, it'll be able to see all the Meshtastic tags within a several kilometer radius. I mean, obviously, your mileage may vary, height versus distance, but if you've got a drone that's crashed in a field and you've lost it, you take the DJI drone up with the Meshtastic relay on it, and you just fly it over the field, and eventually it picks up the tag on the down drone and relays the signal back to you. That's pretty slick. That's a pretty slick. This is one of the better tags that I've seen. I've actually been trying to find a good Meshtastic radio. Hey, Captain Bry. Why can't I do Meshtastic with an Express LRS receiver? Huh? Captain Bry, get on it. I want every Express LRS device to also be a Meshtastic device. I think I looked into this once. Yeah, running Meshtastic on an Express LRS transmitter. Yeah. I'm not the first, because the SX, the Semtech chip is the same between them. I think there's some other things that are different. I'm not sure that they run on an ESP32 MCU. Anyway. It would be great if my Express LRS receiver, or I could just buy an ELRS receiver and turn it into a Meshtastic device and run it in parallel with my ELRS link. Anyway, I'm going to save that SenseCap card tracker. Yeah, Sunshine, I know that Meshtastic uses LoRa. What I would like is the ability to turn commodity hardware like an ELRS receiver into a Meshtastic device. If you think about it, an ELRS receiver already has the Semtech LoRa chip, it already has an MCU, and it already has an antenna. And it's an extremely nice and small form factor. Every Meshtastic tag that I've ever seen, even the small ones, are relatively big and heavy. And so I would love to be able to just turn an Express LRS receiver, boom, into a Meshtastic node with firmware. But all right. Any suggestions? SkyZone 04X Pro versus HD0 Goggles 2 for analog. My humble opinion is the HD0 Goggles 2 is a better analog goggle. It's larger, it's more expensive, but it's just far more full-featured. I think it's a better receiver. The Goggles 2, it's not a diversity receiver. It doesn't have fusion. I've heard people say that in high multipath indoor environments, the HD0 Goggles 2 does worse because it doesn't have fusion. I will acknowledge that most of my use of the goggles has not been in high multipath indoor environments, so that could be the case. Like if you're thinking about whoop racing, maybe the SkyZone Sky 04X Pro is better, but I would the Goggles 2 all the way for me. Hey, Yaros. Yaros, I see you asking. I got you queued, but man, I'll get your question right now. Yaros asks, did you see my email about the Betaflight GPS crash bug? I did see it. The issue is, well, here, I'll just pull up the email. Yeah, I did see that. I am aware of that. I may make content about it. I just haven't gotten around to it. Yes. Yes! Oh, Blunty. I just got a Steam key for body cam. Yes. Redeem a wallet code. Continue. Success. Awesome. Body cam. I'll talk about that in a second. Where is Yaros's? Yeah. So Yaros points out, Betaflight, if you have a GPS configured but not working, and this is Betaflight, it's existed from Betaflight 3.1, so it's all versions of Betaflight you might be using today, but there's some reason that it's becoming more common today on latest versions of Betaflight. If you have a GPS enabled in the ports tab, but not actually working, it can cause a complete freeze of the MCU in flight. And basically the flight controller is dead until you power cycle it. It doesn't beeper, it doesn't turtle mode, it doesn't return to home, it doesn't fail safe, it just stops working. It has nothing to do with GPS rescue or a sat count or anything. It happens whenever you have a GPS assigned in the ports tab and the GPS unit is missing, the wire disconnects in mid-flight, baud rate not properly configured, or for any other reason Betaflight cannot establish stable communication with the GPS. And apparently it's a known issue, but you should know about it. And if you know that your GPS is disconnected, you have to disable it in the ports tab. And hopefully it will be pull requested and fixed. Yeah, worth raising attention, though, so people know Betaflight GPS bug can cause you to, like, just fall out of the sky for no reason. I was talking about body cam. Body cam is a game. Body cam is a game.
There's no like embargo on the email you got, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about the game. Thank you for the reminder, though. Body
Yep.
Cam is a game. Well, you said here, major update September. This is just the Steam page. There's an update coming for the game. And they reached out to me and said, do you want to be part of the play test? It is a first-person tactical shooter. It's hyper-realistic is the thing that it has going for it. The footage is hyper-realistic and the gameplay is it's not like, you have a health bar and you get shot 50 times. It's like you get shot one time and you die. Also, like, a lot of the animations are hyper-realistic and the guns are super realistic. Anyway, the reason I'm interested in it is they added a FPV drone mode. I don't know if they did that officially. Hang on. If this is a mod or what. So somebody added an FPV drone mode to Body Cam. That's cute. And so when they reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to be part of this playtest? I was like, sure. I'll take a Steam key. So they sent me a Steam key. This physics looks pretty shitty, honestly. I hope it's gotten better. They sent me the Steam key. I was like, sure, I'll check it out. It's FPV adjacent. They sent me a Steam key to the playtest, but not for the actual main game. And I was like, and I actually gave a couple of the they sent me like 10 Steam keys, and I gave one to Blunty, I gave one to Fabio, I gave one to my son, and Blunty is like, this is not a Steam key for the game. This is just for the playtest. I was like, oh well, that's useless, because I didn't already have I mean, no offense, I just didn't already have a Body Cam license. So then I said to him, hey, will you send me a Steam key for the game? And they did. Sadly, Blunty, they only sent me one. You have been invited to the playtest. Play now. Oh, cool. That's $33. I would have bought it, but why not? Why not try to get it for free if you can? Okay. Got a $5 super chat from Flying Tacos. Why does my TBS Crossfire show minus 90 RSSI at a distance of 1 mile? Minus 90 at 1 mile sounds okay. Yeah, that seems pretty normal. I mean, Crossfire will go to like minus 100, I think, at least. Keep in mind that the packet rate, 50 hertz, the dB is the dB. It doesn't matter what your packet rate is. Minus the 50 hertz and the minus 90 don't really matter, don't really factor in. In dynamic mode, it shows 70 to 80. So that means you need to increase your power. Like, why dynamic mode doesn't, all dynamic mode is doing is turning your power up as you get further away. So set your power to max. Yeah,
Crossfire also has dynamic packet rate.
But you talk about dynamic packet rate. Well, at 1 mile, there's no way he's at 150 hertz. But anyway, the packet rate doesn't affect the RSSI DBM. The packet rate affects the LQ, but the SNR and the RSSI DBM are just.
Yes, it does, because it's FSK versus LoRa.
Yeah, but DBM is DBM. How does modulation affect DBM? DBM is just the raw energy hitting the antenna, right?
I guess. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, so there's no interpretation of anything in that number.
Look, I don't know how DBM is being measured, but DBM, if they are not actually measuring analog DBM and they're doing some kind of synthetic calculation derived from like theoretically, what they could be doing is they're looking at the incoming bit stream. They're demodulating the bit stream, and then there's some kind of error correction on the bit stream. And based on the percentage of error bits, they're extrapolating a synthetic DBM, which they then report to the to the radio as if they were measuring dBm. That is a thing that happens in the world. If we assume, and then theoretically the modulation could affect that. But if we assume that the chip is actually measuring the dBm of the analog signal coming in, then the modulation, I don't see how it would affect that. The modulation would affect the LQ, the link quality, the ability. So, for example, with FSK, you would need a higher dBm to successfully demodulate the signal or decode the signal. Your signal sensitivity would be higher dBm.
Gotcha. I put
But the
screenshot
measured
from the
dBm should be the same. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah, I put a screenshot from the TBS manual. It says -100 for both is where it considers an alarm.
That doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't make sense. Because 50 hertz must have... The whole reason 50 hertz goes further is because it can operate at a lower dBm. So something doesn't add up there. Like the receive sensitivity of 50 hertz is a lower number, a lower dBm, more sensitivity than 150 hertz. That's
I think
a
it's
fact.
behind your head, but it does say, it says -100 over there, just so you got it.
Yeah, it does, but that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm just letting, yeah.
Okay.
It's hiding behind your head.
That has never made sense to me. I know I've seen that before. It has never made sense to me. Yeah. So anyway, the only thing that affects dBm, the output power of the transmitter and the transmit and receive antennas. That's it. So be at max power, have a good quality antenna, point the antenna at the drone. And then if you still don't get good dBm, maybe you have a broken antenna or a damaged receiver. Here's a super chat from Snakehead Lab, who asks, what's best for long range? TBS 2 watt nano versus Nomad 1 watt plus GEP-RC dual band? That's an impossible question to answer. Both of them are good. The TBS is higher output power. Double the power gives you 40% more range. So, but Nomad is dual band. So it's just a question of like which problem you're trying to solve. And also Express LRS has different hardware, different features. The question is not which of these two would I buy for long range. The question is which ecosystem do I want to live in? Do I want to live in the TBS ecosystem or do I want to live in the Express LRS ecosystem? Either of those will do as much long range as you could possibly want when combined with a good antenna and a good overall setup. Okay. All right. We're getting to the end here, guys. Let me just check to see if any outstanding questions from the Discord. Before we go, we'll throw a bone to the patrons in the Discord server. If you want to be one of them, my link to my Patreon is down below. I'd love to have you as a supporter. It is a completely negligible amount of money compared to what I know you already spend on FPV. It's just a question of whether you feel like I deserve it. And I don't care. I mean, I do care. I would, but like, I'm not gonna like try and like. It's your money. You do what you want with it. But I just want to remind you that it's there. Is what I'm saying. And we'll throw a little bone to the patrons in the Discord server. Madstick says, "Beg, damn you, Madstick! You have a message in your inbox from me, you son of a bitch. How dare you show your face in my server and ghost me on Messenger? I know you have a good reason. I don't care. How dare you? Just got back today. Oh, apparently you were doing something more important. Uh-huh. Hey, Bardwell, you talked about the archetype from Ether FPV before. What do you think about the Amity? Ether FPV Amity. I don't know. Never heard of it. Oh God! They made a non 3D printed drone frame. They just made a regular old drone frame. Well, all right, if you say so. What's this front end? What is this front end made of? That looks like injection molded, or is that SLA printed? That's sexy. What's the front end? Is that metal? That better be metal. That front end better be metal. It looks like it's metal, but I can't quite tell. That better not be plastic. That's metal. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks fine. T700 carbon fiber, good. What's going on with these arms? That's interesting. You don't see as many 3-inch frames with replaceable arms. It's nice that that's an option for somebody who wants it. Good looking front end. I like it. I like it. Damn it! I was about to get bingo because I heard Ether FPV and I thought we were going to talk about a 3D printed frame, but no! That's not a 3D printed frame, so I can't get bingo. I think I was going to get a bingo. If I can't remember. Maybe not. Oh, well. Alrighty, guys. We're going to wrap this one up. We'll be back tomorrow. In case you didn't know, people are saying, I didn't know you were streaming today. Go to my YouTube channel. Go to the live tab. Now sometimes I don't schedule my streams this far out. But oftentimes, you'll see I'll have streams scheduled at least a week or two out so you can see when I'll be streaming. This has been here for like 2 weeks. FYI. Just FYI. So go there, check it out. You can see when I'll be streaming. It's usually Sundays at 1 p.m., Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I've had this same thumbnail for at least 5 years, Blunty. Oh, there's FPV news. Oh my goodness. Uh-huh. Anyway, that's going to do it. We're going to wrap up. And see you guys in the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.